Hi everybody, my name's Julia from Bobbins and Buttons, and today I've got a tutorial to share with you for how to make a simple drawcord bag using only the overlocker. So this little bag has quite a few techniques, all of which are done on the overlocker. I've got a couple of examples here to show you. So this one is quite a small bag that I made. So this is kind of the idea of this is a little travel bag to carry a face cloth and some reusable face wipes in matching fabric. So that's quite a nice little gift, or useful if you travel a lot and want to carry those items around. You could make this quite a bit bigger and make it as a PE kit bag, or things like for travelling again, if you want shoe bags to carry your shoes in to keep them clean in your luggage, or much smaller if you wanted to make a little gift bag. So lots of different ideas. This one here I've made quite a lot larger, and I'm going to use this one as a gift bag, and I've actually made this one out of scraps. So this is quite a nice idea if you're thinking along the lines of sustainable gift wrap. So it's a reusable bag as well as a gift inside the bag. So let me show you how to make this bag. Because I'm using old shirts for this project, I'm going to start by just cutting along the seam so I can have a flat piece of fabric. So both these shirts have their back, so I'm going to use the back because I want a large piece of fabric. So I'm just going to start by cutting along the seams, just carefully along the seams, the bits you probably cut off anyway, saves a bit of time, and just carefully around the armholes until I have the whole of the back piece cut off. So I've cut the backs out, so I've got a nice flat piece of fabric, and I'm going to bring in my template. And because I've made a template, because I'm going to make a few of these bags this size, I'm just going to place the weights on. I'm going to follow the checks on this because that's an easy way of keeping it nice and square. So I'm just putting a few weights on there. Now I'm just going to draw around it with a chalk marker. You could pin it on, or you could draw it directly onto the fabric. Either way is fine. Now I've got that drawn on, I can take the weights off and take the template off, and I can just cut around those lines. So now I'm just going to cut the other piece out, so I've got a back and a front. So the last thing I need to do is to cut some strips to create the drawcord for the top. So as a rule of thumb, I go with twice the width of the upper edge. So in this case, this measures 40 centimetres. So the whole thing right all the way around is going to measure 80 centimetres. So I'm going to need 160 centimetres worth of pieces that will create the drawcord. I'm going to use this sleeve to create strips long enough to make my 160 centimetres. So the way I like to do that is to draw them on with a pattern making ruler, but if you've got a quilt ruler or a standard ruler, that's fine as well. You need a width of around about 3 centimetres, quite narrow. So with a pattern ruler like this, you've got increments along the edge here of up to 6 centimetres. So I'm going to go with 3 centimetres. So at the 3 centimetre line here, if I draw a line, I can place the 3 centimetre line against that line and draw another line, and that will give me my 3 centimetre width. So even though I've got checks, I'm going to start by drawing a line along here. So this is my first starting point. And then I'm going to place the ruler onto that line at the 3 centimetre mark and draw another line. So that's my first piece. and then I can repeat that and draw another line here. I'm basically going to need 4 pieces to add up to make my 160 length. So I'm going to carry on doing that until I've got all 4 pieces, and then I'm going to cut those out. So now I can lay these out and just trim them down to an even size to make my the length that I want. So I'm just going to measure that to 40, which is what I want, and now I can measure these ones, and I've got 4 strips. I can join those together to create the length that I want. So now we're ready to start sewing. So just before I start sewing, I'm going to turn and press a 2.5 hem at one short edge of each piece. So this one I've already pressed there, so we've got a nice sharp edge, which will make it a lot easier when we come to do the hem or the channel on this bag. So there we've got both hems turned into the wrong side. So now what I'm going to do is match the raw edges and pin or clip the two together. So I quite like using these clips with overlocker projects, because just in case a pin does get missed, it does make a bit of a mess of the overlocker. So I just like to clip these round. You can't miss the clips, matching the raw edges. Ready to sew. So just before I start sewing, I'm going to measure down from the top a 10 centimetre opening, and just put a chalk mark there. So that's where we're going to start, to leave a small opening. So if you're making a smaller bag, your opening would obviously be a bit smaller, but because this is quite a large bag, I'm just going to leave that at 10 centimetres, but you could go smaller than that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlock from this point here all the way down, coming off the end, and then I'm going to overlock the end and go all the way up the other side. I'm going to open out this folded hem at that point. Obviously it's not going to be stitched to that side, but just stitched to the end at that point. So there's our overlocked edges, starting at the point we marked and just grading carefully on and stitching round. So I would recommend taking a tiny bit off as you overlock, and that way you can ensure if your edges aren't quite cut straight that you do catch all your seam in, and keep it from having any little holes in those seams. So the next part is a little bit tricky. We're going to overlock around this edge, but we've just got to manage where the knife comes so that we make sure we don't cut a hole at the base of the opening. So what I would recommend, if you're not too sure about this, is just cut a slit in a piece of fabric, and just a piece of scrap fabric, and just test out where the knife comes to, so you can see how it works. So all I'm going to do is just start by stitching along one edge, not really cutting anything off apart from the very you know, these little frame parts. And when I come to that opening, I want the knife to stop at the opening. So if your overlocker goes very fast, just hand wheel it to that point so that the knife is at the point where the two seams match. You'll find that the needles are probably quite far back. So at this point, keep the needles in the work and lift the foot. And now I'm just going to pivot that round. And this is where I'm going to try not to get any creases at this area, but I'm keen to just keep the stitching along the line more than anything. So I'm just going to start stitching again really carefully and trying to manoeuvre the fabric and make sure the knife's not cutting anything else and we're still sewing on that edge. And there we go. So that's covered that nicely at that point. So the last part of this is just to create the channel at the top. So we've already folded down the top edge, so now we're going to fold the folded edge. This is the front side, so we're going to fold the folded edge right sides together so that we get another fold with the raw edge even with the folded edge, and just clip that along here. So I'm going to do that all the way round and then stitch that along this edge. But what I would recommend is you just disengage the knife for this one. So if you do accidentally go wrong, you can unpick this and you won't have a hole in that point. So there we have it, our channel at the top of the bag. So on the outside you get a nice neat little seam, and on the inside you've just got the overlocking. So if we press that now, basically we can finish off these ends. If you want to thread a needle and send those back, or you can probably just snip them off. Now all we've got left to do is make the drawcord. So I'm going to start by just joining our short ends on each of the pieces, so we've got one long piece. And now what I'm going to do is fold the strip in half with the seams on the inside, and I'm just literally going to overlock the edges together, just taking off a little bit as I stitch along, but all the way through the whole thing. All that's left to do now is just to thread this into the channel. So I'm going to take a safety pin and just thread that onto the end of the safety pin, and then poke the safety pin into the channel and work that around the whole channel until it comes out the other side. So I've turned the bag through to the outside, the cords come through the channel, so all I'm going to do now is just tie the end. You might want to shorten them a little bit at this point, but I'm just going to tie the end there, just give it a nice knot, and then just trim close to that knot just to finish the end. Same with the other side. So like I said, I'm going to use my bag as a gift bag. So I've made my husband a Dean sweatshirt as a gift, and I've folded it so it will fit inside the bag. So I'm just going to put that in to show you how that looks. And there we have it, a gift wrapped sweatshirt in reusable wrapping. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you've got any comments, feel free to leave them below. And if you'd like to see more videos, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.